There are a ton of things to learn when playing Dragons Dogma 2, and I'm here to give you guys my absolute best 10 tips that will save you a lot of time and trouble. In fact, one of these tips will quite literally save you from your pawn getting a disease in town and killing everyone in sight. Yeah, that can actually happen. I also did my best to make sure that I didn't copy a bunch of other content creators' tips and tricks type videos, so that way you guys won't waste any time watching anyone else's videos alongside mine. But anyways, enough talk, let's actually get into this video. I'm sure by now many of you have gone on to some of these escort missions where you have to escort an NPC back to town or to some location, right? And for the most part, I feel like a lot of these missions, the NPCs will actually follow you at a decent pace and you really don't have to do anything. However, there are a few of these types of missions where you're having to escort a, wounded soldier or something like that, or the person just walks really slow. And this can be bad for a number of reasons. Obviously, the biggest one is, it's going to take a lot longer to complete the mission, and you want to go out and do other stuff. The other one being, maybe a griffin just landed on the ground and is trying to kill the NPC that you're trying to escort right now, and rather than resetting the mission, you just want to get out of there. But anyways, whatever reason it be, you can actually pick up the NPCs and carry them. This works really well with, like I said, a escort mission where you're having to escort a wounded soldier and they're like limping. You pick them up and you actually carry them in front of you instead of over your shoulder, and you could carry them indefinitely, and you could also run with them. So yeah, this one is definitely a huge time saver, and it was one of the bigger aha moments I had in my head when I figured this out. If your pawn is not going to be tanking, I highly recommend, especially if it's a healer, get 2 ranks of the Thief Vocation skill on that pawn. The reason we want to do this is because the first passive augment from the Thief role is going to be Subtlety, which is going to decrease the likelihood of being targeted by foes. So it's essentially a passive threat reduction, which is incredibly useful. My main pawn is a healer, so this was probably one of the first things I had her do when she was leveling. It goes by super quick. I think I got this in like 20 minutes, and it's just a very nice skill to have on your character. Now, obviously, if your main pawn is your tank, you do not want this. And it's also probably a very good skill to look at when you're trying to pick your other 2 pawns in your group. I just wish more people would actually start to get this skill on their characters. It'd be really cool in a perfect world where we have every single character in our group except our tank with this subtlety perk. Okay, so I've got something to admit here. Basically, I had to restart my game because when I first started playing, the first 10 hours, I was basically, anytime I collected those golden beetles on the trees, I was actually selling those. Like a massive noob, I was not reading the text, and I just looked at how much they were selling for, and I was like, oh yeah, this is some good money. So I just kept selling them. I think I sold 20 of them. So for the people that don't know what I'm talking about, the golden beetle is an item you can find on trees scattered across the map, and when you actually use them on your character, it actually reduces your carry capacity slightly, or increases it rather. And with the fact that your inventory is based on how much stuff you're carrying and it affects a bunch of things, having a huge inventory and being able to carry a lot of things at once is definitely a premium. So yeah, anytime you find a golden beetle on a tree, pick it up and use it immediately. This next one is kind of a no-brainer, but I still felt like it was important to include this one, and that is, try to make sure that your group is balanced. And what I mean by this is, make sure that you obviously have a healer, you've got a tank, and a DPS. Now, I'm sure any kind of group composition would probably work. However, some will make your day a little bit harder and some will make them easier. Now, I guess it really just depends on the situation. I feel like if you had a group of just 4 rogues, that could work in some situations and probably not in others. And when I mean tank, I mean make sure that you have a warrior or fighter in your group, and make sure that whatever pawn that is, they have an actual taunt ability. So this next tip is thief specific, and it's such a huge one that I really wanted to include it in this guide, and that is to pick up the Formless Feint ability as soon as possible. This ability, when activated, will allow you to automatically dodge any incoming ability at the cost of stamina, which is crazy. It will allow you to literally just stand still and just spam your attack button on an enemy and just dodge his attacks all day. Now, this is not a skill that you can actually learn from the vocation trainer. This is actually something that you learn from a scroll that's given to you as a reward. Not to get into the whole guide here, but you'll get this from the questline that takes you to the Nameless Village. Another mistake I made when I first started playing this game was I was actually selling these type of specialization scrolls that I was getting because they were, good money. There are different types of these scrolls, however, the only way that I've found that you can get them is by getting them as a reward from NPCs in quests and things like that. And this is because specializations are actually very important, and some of them are incredibly important, especially that one that allows your pawn to translate Elvish. This next one is incredibly important, and it's one that if you act on it quickly, you can actually save your game. So basically, people have all heard about that Dragon's Plague that your pawns have been talking about, right? Well, that's actually a thing in the game. It's a plague or it's a disease that your pawn can actually develop, and it will basically turn your pawn into a murderous killing machine that will just slaughter everything. And if they act on this while they're in town, they will murder everybody. If any of your pawns ever develop this disease, all you need to do is pick them up and throw them into water and basically kill them or dismiss them. Now, you have to do this very quickly. You cannot let them start going on a rampage. I've found that the quickest way to have your pawns develop this is if they are fighting dragons, so just be careful of that. Another really useful tip that I would definitely not sleep on, and that is throwing rocks at people. Or I should say boulders. The damage that you get from throwing these giant boulders at things is incredible. You could one-shot smaller, weaker enemies with this, and then they also do a ton of damage to like cyclopses and bigger monsters and things like that. And they also help a lot with trying to stagger or stun things. So yeah, the next time you're in a fight and you see a giant rock in the ground, throw it. Another really important tip that I wish I knew before I played the game, and that is that the stats that you gain as you level up vary depending on what vocation you're currently using. And if you, for example, play the game as a warrior and you level up to like level 20, and then you decide I want to be a mage. Now, yes, you can still do this, obviously, no one's telling you you can't. However, just keep in mind that your stats are actually going to be weaker for casting spells versus someone that's been playing a mage from level 1 and they have not changed. Now, like I said, if you're someone that's more casual and you really don't care about min-maxing or, obviously people telling you what to do, it's your game, do whatever you want. I just want to let everybody know that if you try to flip-flop between big things like, mage to warrior or rogue to mage, whatever, it's going to be a little bit weaker than someone that's been doing that for all their levels. But if you're like a mage and you want to switch to a sorcerer, or you're a rogue and you want to go to an archer, those kind of swaps are totally fine and they're not going to be that big of a deal. It's just more towards like warrior to mage or thief to warrior, stuff like that. Now, for my final tip, I would say if you guys want people to be picking up your pawn and using them in your group, set their quest to be something simple and then also make the reward be very good. Like, I don't know, killing an ogre and then give them like 10,000 gold as a reward, right? Yeah, it's expensive, but that's the unfortunate price we have to pay if we want people to pick our pawn. Okay, I think I blabbered enough here in this video. If you guys enjoyed this one, let me know by leaving a like, and also consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this in the future. And before you go, let me know in the comments section what your thoughts are on this. Are there any tips or tricks that you guys would like to share with other people? If so, post them in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I'm still Solo, and I'll see you all in the next one.